guys for a huge favor. So my mom hasn't been feeling very well and I haven't seen her for a while, so I was just hoping we could send her a quick video to say good morning. You guys okay with that? Yeah. All right, hold on, give me 1 second. So on the count of 3, we're all just going to say, we'll say Happy Friday. Is that all right? And can we wave?
How about Mom?
Happy Friday. We can do that. Thank you. Good to do that. On the count. All right. So on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Happy Friday, Mom! You guys are awesome too. I will. All right. So you guys are gonna be mad because I was asking. Just kidding. My mom is actually all right. I just did it for my Snapchat, but you guys are good sports, so I appreciate that. No, but I will send it to her and she will get a good laugh. Can you hear me? Okay, alright. So, my name is Vince. I actually work here at Laguna Honda with administration. I'm part of the KPO, and for this workshop, I was actually the workshop leader. So what that really means is it was a free week to kind of kick back and relax and enjoy the catered lunches and the cakes and the desserts and everything like that. So it's been a pretty rough week. But all kidding aside, during the past couple days, a lot of your colleagues and really the past couple days, the past couple weeks, we put a lot of work into planning and preparing for the workshop. So I appreciate all of their time. I know their time and commitment. I know that it wasn't easy for them to clear their schedules and find coverage, and I'm sure that all of you guys missed them on your units and in the departments. So thank you guys for all of your time. It was a great learning experience for myself. I feel like I learned a great deal about each department and each discipline. So thank you for that. So just a little background for what we did this week.
Sorry
about that. So a little bit of background. So back in November, we did our first value stream workshop, where we took a look at the admission process from start to finish here at Laguna Honda. And during that week, we identified a couple key areas that we wanted to do deep dives, where we could, identify areas of improvement. So back in February, we actually did our first Kaizen workshop, and that was based on pre-admissions. And we actually made some significant changes where we were actually able to develop or create one standardized application form or referral packet. And I think at the time we were using 2 or 3 different ones. So there was a lot of chaos. There was no kind of standardization. The SNF requirements were a lot of them were unclear. So that was a huge process. But since implementation, workflow has been a little bit smoother, and our work. And I think that the feedback is that it's been a success. So it's a good thing. So this week we focus on clinical assessments. All of your colleagues here, I think we have representatives from each discipline and each department. We really collaborated to try to identify areas where we can make improvements to improve patient care and also to improve the workflow of our staff. So I'm going to hand over to these guys to tell you about all the great work we've been doing throughout the week.
Okay. Hello everyone. My name's Elizabeth. I work in administration. So Vince talked about the visual of the actual value stream here. The next slide is the A3. This is the A3 that was created from that visual. And we've got the problem statement and the implementation plan. And this was written in December, and since then we've been tracking all the different implementation plans to make sure we are hitting them and making some improvements. The next slide is the problem statement, is the A3 that we created this week. So this came out of all the work that we did this week, and the problem statement is the length of time it takes for the resident care team members to complete the initial resident admission assessment can take up to 7 to 14 days, which is too long, resulting in residents having to wait for services. The process is unclear and variable. And in order to address the problem, we came up with, we had a whole process to address the problem, which they will describe in detail now.
Hi everyone, my name is Glenn. What you'll see behind me is a target sheet. So with any good Kaizen workshop, we always want to be able to measure and quantify our results. So some of the things that we wanted to focus in on this week was the amount of movement that the clinicians had to do over the course of a new admission. We also wanted to track the individual times that it took for each individual assessment area to be completed. And then we also wanted to look at our technology in terms of our paging system. I think there was some issues around who it goes to, whether people get it, how long it takes, so that's something we wanted to track as well. And then lastly, something that wasn't on the target sheet that we wanted to really focus in on was the pharmacy med rec process. So we wanted to track how long it took from when an admission came in to when an order was filled, and then how long it took for a physician to actually put their orders in electronically. And later on in the presentation, I'll go over the results that we had for the week.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Wade. I'm from administration, and I'm a process owner for this Kaizen workshop, along with Dr. Ventura, which means that I will be coming to some of you to help us test and continue with some of the improvements that we found this week. So what we did find was that the current state of clinical assessment process takes a long time. Along some of the areas that we found needed to be focused on are areas that we identify as waste. And I know that may be scary for some of you, but it is areas that do create the length of time of our clinical assessment. The one that we're highlighting here is called defects. We also had motion waste, we had over-processing, and a couple other areas of waste that my colleagues will discuss. But one of the things that we would like to highlight is that of our 7 clinical disciplines that we have here, we have 6 sources of truth that they all refer to prior to doing their clinical assessment. So that is one of the things that we wanted to address as we move forward.
Morning, my name is Joe. I'm from Activity Therapy. And for this project to continue, this group was responsible for getting some data to measure the waste that were occurring. And you see on this chart, there's all these disciplines that were observed by with VITS and then validated by this group. So an example of this data is that you see nursing with 7 next to it. They were observed 7 times. And the wait time, so from the admission to when they first saw a nurse would be, on an average, would be around 8 minutes. And then their face-to-face time was observed to be 40 minutes. And then following that, their documentation time was 60 minutes, so that the 40 to 60 translates to 100 minutes cycle time. That's what cycle time means. So another example would be activity therapy, who were observed 3 times. And the average wait time before they were met was about 4,000 minutes, which is 3 days. Their face-to-face time with the patient was about roughly 25 minutes for their assessment, and their documentation was roughly 25 minutes, which leads to the cycle time of 50 minutes. And so this is the data that we were working on. And to give you a sense of the total cycle time, a patient who does not need rehab assessment, with all the disciplines combined, ranged from about 367 minutes, 6 hours, and with rehab would be about 9 hours, 552 minutes.
Good morning, my name is Brigitte Van Uwek. I am representing nursing. I am the charge nurse on South 2. We did Gembutsu. We went to see what was being done in the Gemba, the place where the work is being done. We observed a real-time admission on one of the units, and we allowed them to assess their, to do their assessment throughout the process. These are pictures of the Gamba walk. We went to different areas and we collected data, and this is the pharmacy huddle that they observed, and the other one is collecting data on South 2. As you all heard, we have the waste wheel. So we went around and looked to see where we can, where there is a lot of muda, which is waste. And the original wheel has 7 wastes. We added 1 more. So the waste wheel consisted of wastes in transport, resources, inventory, motion, waiting, over-processing, over-production, and defect. So throughout the week, we had the problem statement, as Elizabeth mentioned, and the root cause analysis tool was the same, and then the 5 whys were born. So every time you have a question, just ask why. Those are the 5 whys.
Hi, I'm Linda from social work, and we were a pretty comprehensive team. We included a representative from pretty much every discipline of the RCT, and together we came up with collected data. We went on a waste walk, and we came up with over 30 solutions to explore as a group.
Good morning, my name is Carolina from Rehab. We completed some idea summary sheets to discuss all the recommendations. One of the categories that we identified was checklist. And one of the problem areas in this category was that each clinical setting acts individually. Our goal was to complete a standard work to organize assessments and to encourage collaboration between RCT members. One of the measures taken was to coordinate assessments, and our goal was to reduce the wait times, to decrease overprocessing, and to improve the overall patient care experience. And these pictures here depict before and after. The second category that we identified was called external setup. And one of the problem areas in this category was there was a long wait time for admission, prescriptions, orders, and for providers to call back regarding discrepancies. And our goal was to complete work that can be done before the resident arrives to prevent delays in care. One of the measures taken was in pharmacy. They wanted to perform a med-rec as part of a chart prep before the prescription was ordered and finalized. And this goal was to improve accuracy of the treatment's orders, to decrease the wait time, and to decrease the number of phone calls between the pharmacists and the physicians. And again, these pictures depict the before and after assessments.
Hi, my name is Joe Elias Jackson. I am from IT. As Carolina was mentioning, from the waste wheel or the MUDA, we came up with these idea summary sheets, and the 2 other categories were technology, where there was a problem identifying that the clinical staff or the resident care team, and my new acronym is Team Care, they weren't notified at the right time. So that could delay the process of the assessments. So even though there are regulatory time frames, we wanted to still see if we could improve that timing so that the patient experience is more efficient. And so that was one of the ideas that came up. The second item was communications. And it's similar to the technology in that we did identify sending a group page so that when a resident arrives, everybody knows and they can be prepared and the team can be ready to proceed. And so you see the before and after where things are staggered, delayed, identifying who's on the team to see this resident. And then we're all together at once providing patient care and sharing the information where info collected, say in sacred moments, aren't having to be re-asked, and it's uniform and the focus is on our residents. Thank you.
I'm from social work and I'm back. It's hard to get rid of social workers and their probing questions. So I got a lot of flack this week for asking residents about money, insurance, and funeral planning. And all a lot of popular questions, but that's part of the job. So we were divided into teams. So we categorized the 30 solutions into 4 groups: checklists, communications, external setup, and technology. And they did not allow us to stay within our comfort zone, because for social work, probably communication setup would be my comfort zone, and they put me in technology, the least tech-savvy person in the technology group. But I felt like I learned a lot, and hopefully helped the concept of technology also.
Hello, I'm Michael McShane, Chief Medical Officer here, and also executive sponsor of this Kaizen workshop. It's been a pleasure. One of the things we wanted to do for improvements is to run experiments. So we figure out what we want to take a look at, and we run an experiment. We define what the experiment is initially, then we quickly run the experiment. And in that way we can get results right away. We can evaluate those results and then make the improvement if the experiment works. If it doesn't work, as we tried in one of our pharmacy experiments, we immediately know it doesn't work, and then we move on and we make another improvement. So it gives us an immediate feedback loop. The other thing we wanted to do was to define the sequence of the clinical assessments. So basically the chart prep will be done before the patient arrives by pharmacy, and then that will be discussed with medicine, so that happens before the patient even arrives. After the patient arrives, you can see within 10 minutes the nurses are already doing their assessment. They complete that assessment within 30 minutes. The doctor comes in there at that time, and the doctor is finished in 3 hours. And then all the rest, you can see that after that 3 hours, the other clinical teams come in, and they all complete their assessments from 1 day to 5 days. So this is a marked improvement from previously, which improves the patient experience and able to give our residents an immediate assessment, and then we can improve their care.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Muchero, Chief of Medicine. To apply what was mentioned before, we create 9 standard work for the resident care team to improve efficiency, decrease waste, and create reliable results consistently. This standardized work went from the pre-admission communication process, creating an admission kit for nursing and medicine, the admission arrival communication process, clinical assessment sequences, technology, computer help desk, standardized work, communication, group page, chart prep, clinical assessment. This shows how all disciplines are dependent in each other and work together to improve the care. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Monica. Good morning, I'm Maiva Kirosi from administration, and during the week we learned lean principles such as external setup, respect for people, standard work, one-piece flow, and eliminating waste. And on the left of the slide are list what we worked on during the week. As an example, what our team observed at the Gemba was that our admission team was going in and out of the room, looking for supplies, looking for materials, looking for forms. So to decrease MUDA, as Brigitte said, waste and excess motion and transportation, we created an admission kit with materials and supplies needed during the assessment, and it was given a big thumbs up by our clinical staff. And in lean terms, this is called external setup.
I am Grace Chen, I'm from nursing, and we created work groups based on our 4 problem categories that we identified, and each of our work groups was comprised of members of different disciplines. So it allowed us to break out of our individual silos and really see the problem from other disciplines' perspective.
Our experiment tracker allowed us to document the experiments that we did. We ran over a dozen experiments during this week. Then we categories were, if we made this change, then we expected this outcome. We expected certain measurable results, and at the end of every day, we documented what our actual results are and what our still to do lists were, because sometimes our experiments weren't successful, sometimes they were, and oftentimes we needed to go back to the drawing board and come up with some new idea. And that's why there's different colors, because each day we tried something new.
Good morning, my name is Susanna Meneses and I'm the Admissions and Eligibility Supervisor. During this week of leave, we found that there were some processes that could be improved. So this was called Just Do It. So the first access we gave was for the unit clerks to be able to access the admission log, and also for the resident care team to also access the admission process. The packets, I'm sorry. We then moved on to our first product, which was to create the admissions kit containing critical material supplies used by all clinical assessment areas, and is being piloted in S3.
Good morning, my name is Gabby from Clinical Nutrition. Other products from this week, they created a better group paging system in order to reduce the number of pages that need to be sent out to individual people when someone arrives on the unit. So this is a picture of that being tested. It can also serve as a notification system for other disciplines who weren't already being notified in a timely manner. There was also a chart created. We broke down the data from all of the different assessments, put it into a chart, and tried to identify the areas where there were repetition, and then that was cross-referenced with the different sections from the NDS.
Hi, I'm Mandy from Pharmacy. So this is a diagram depicting the sequence of clinical assessments by the RCT members. I won't go over the details as Dr. Machine has already done so. The goal for this is that all clinical assessments by resident care team will be done within 48 hours of patient arrival. So that will increase the value added time, which is the face-to-face time with our patient. The next one is the pharmacy chart prep process. We tested out in 2 units and we have some setbacks, so we have since created this better work to allow pharmacy to perform chart prep for new admissions only, and we'll be piloting it in more units in the upcoming weeks. The goal is for pharmacy to start the chart prep process by entering active medications from the referring hospital, and physicians will spend less time entering medication orders, and pharmacy will be able to finish the med rec in a timely manner, and the nurses will be able to administer medication to patients on time.
Hello again. So in summary, we had a very busy week. You can see that we have many improvements that we would like to share with you. The first slide here is really about getting to the patient faster and getting care to the patient faster. So to think about doing the external setup for meds and getting the meds to the patient sooner when they arrive, that's a win. And then to think about if you went to a unit and you needed a cow and it was available and it was there and working, that's a bonus. And then if you think about knowing when your patient's even here, that's huge. So hopefully in the next month or so, many of you in the room will benefit from, you know that you're getting an admission and you know exactly when they're here. And here are some other improvements that we have. We have a bit of a cheat sheet so that if you do have a problem with a cow, you know exactly what to say to the help desk and able to get help more quickly. We discussed the sequence of assessments. We also, this admission kit, I have to tell you, S3 has been our go-to unit this week and they've loved it. we actually had to take it away for a minute, and they were like, where are you going? So we really hope to be able to spread that sooner rather than later, because that's really value added for staff and for the patient. Think for nurses in the room, I know I've chased a couple of you looking for a thermometer during an assessment. You won't have to do that anymore. So that's just one tangible outcome from this week.
So as Jen mentioned, there were a lot of improvement efforts over the course of the week, but as you can see, I want to tie it back to our initial target sheet. So one of the things that we did was have an admission kit, and what that means for walking distance and in terms of transition and movement is you can see we had a 68% decrease in the amount of steps that our physicians and our clinicians had to walk to care for our new admission. We also tested, and thanks to our communication group, with the fact that we were able to translate one page going from 10 people to now 22 people. That really covers our entire resident care team being able to be notified of a resident admission and when patients need care. The other two areas that I really want to point out is that we had improvement areas that we are anticipating to decrease our cycle times for each of the individual clinical assessment areas to being able to have them be done within 48 hours. And lastly, in terms of pharmacy rec, you can see that we did trial it. We found some things that worked, some things that didn't, and we're going to continue working on the process to make sure that we eventually get to our goal. There is a lot of follow-up, but we've also done a lot of work this week. So you can see this is our KAB, which is our Kaizen Action Bulletin, and over the next 30, 60 days, we'll be following up in terms of where our improvement areas are, how we spread and train other folks on the different improvement processes that we've done, and eventually how do we measure it, and how do we get the proper technology to support our change process and work in the process. And at this point, I'd like to acknowledge all the special people that allowed us to come into their units, allowed us to observe them doing their work, providing us with the information that we needed for this Kaizen workshop, and then also all the staff that worked in a backfill capacity to allow our great team here to be part of this 5-day workshop. And so on behalf of our wonderful team here, I also want to acknowledge Dr. Michael McShane, Elizabeth Schindler, Vincent Lee, Maiva Grossi, and Joanna Omi from Rona for helping guide us through this entire workshop. It was a long week. We had many disagreements over the course of the week, but I think, as you can see through our presentation, we eventually came together and have a really good outfit, and it's something that we're hoping to sustain over the next couple months and then going forward as well. So that wraps it up for our presentation, but I also want to hold you in your seats because we do have 2 other lean events that are reporting out. Over the past couple of months, we have been working on our house-wide 5S. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to David Smith, and who will be talking about the pharmacy efforts that went on in March.